Alright, hello everyone. My name is Juan Rodriguez, and I will be presenting about on the speaker today. So, an overview of what we are going to do today is what does it look like, different type of speakers, how it works, the enclosures, circuit diagram, the watts, the dangers and damage prevention on the speaker, and then what other appliances the speaker applies to. And then I would end up showing a demo of how to use the speaker. Alright, so what is it? A speaker is an electroacoustic transducer that produces sound in response to an electrical audio signal input. So first of all, we are going to start off with how the speaker looks. So the main parts of the speaker are the magnet and two plates that hold it in place, which are right here. And then we have the basket, which is the frame of the speaker, and it's right here. And then to follow up, we have the voice coil and the two wire terminals, which take up the input. And then we have the spider, the cone, the surround, and finally the dust cap. Right now I'm just showing you the representation of the speaker, and we will go over how it works later on. The speaker that I use for my appliance is also known as a full range speaker. Some helpful search words would be voice coil or loudspeaker. This speaker can be mistaken because there are different type of drivers. For example, there are 3 different type of drivers that I can be confused with: the woofer, the tweeter, and the mid-range driver. The woofer on the top left is the biggest driver, and they are designed to produce low frequency sounds. They're supposed to be bigger because the mass of the cone prevents it from being able to vibrate fast enough, helping it create lower frequencies. Then we have the tweeter, which is on the bottom left, and they are a much smaller unit designed to produce the highest frequencies. They are smaller because the low mass of the cone and the small size helps it vibrate faster, therefore creating higher frequencies. And we have the mid-range driver, which produces a range of frequencies in the middle of the sound spectrum. But the one I used is a full-range driver that is able to pick up all frequencies, making it more reliable and cheaper than buying all 3 separate drivers. So how does the speaker work? So a speaker produces sound waves by rapidly vibrating a flexible cone or diagram, which is right here. And the cone is usually made out of paper, plastic, or metal, and it is attached to the widened end of the suspension, which is right here. The suspension is a rim of flexible material that allows the cone to move, and it is attached to the cone's metal frame called the basket. The basket is the main frame of the whole speaker. The narrow end is connected to the voice coil, and it is attached to another ring of flexible material called the spider, which allows the voice coil to move freely back and forth. So the voice coil serves like a basic electromagnet. An electromagnet is a coil of wire, usually wrapped around a piece of magnetic metal such as iron. Running electrical current through the wire creates a magnetic field around the coil, magnetizing the metal it is wrapped around. The field acts just like the magnetic field on a permanent magnet. It has a polar orientation, a north end and a south end, and it is attracted to iron objects. But unlike a permanent magnet, in an electromagnet, you can alter the orientation of the poles. If you reverse the flow of the current, the north and south ends of the electromagnet switch essentially. An amplifier is constantly switching the electrical signal, fluctuating between a positive charge and a negative charge on the red wire. Since electrons always flow in the same direction, between positively charged particles and negatively charged particles, the current going through the speaker moves one way and the reverses and flows the other way. This alternating current causes a polar orientation of the electromagnet to reverse itself many times a second that rapidly vibrates the cone that ends up producing sound waves that we then pick up as sound or music. So it goes through here, and then it goes through the voice coil, which rapidly goes up and down as the orientation changes, making the diaphragm vibrate, which then makes the sound waves. And then we have enclosures. So the enclosures that are used to produce quality sound over a wide frequency range more effectively. You can break the entire range into smaller chunks that are handled by specialized drivers. Quality loudspeakers will typically have a woofer, a tweeter, and sometimes a mid-range driver all included in one enclosure. As we can see here, we have the woofer, the mid-range, and the tweeter, and this is used because by having all three different type of ranges and frequencies, it just makes the sound make it makes it sound better. But like, how do you connect all of them together? Well, of course, to dedicate each driver to a particular frequency range, the speaker system first needs to break the audio signal into different pieces: the low frequency, the high frequency, and sometimes the mid-range frequencies. This is the job of the speaker crossover, which is here, and that is what determines what frequency is being used at what time. So, enclosures are usually built with heavy wood or another solid material that will effectively absorb the driver's vibration. Because if you simply place the driver on the table will vibrate so much it would drown out a lot of the speaker sound. The most common type of enclosure is the sealed enclosure, what we have on the bottom right. These enclosures are completely sealed so no air can escape. This means the forward wave travels outward into the room while the backward wave travels into the box. These enclosures are less efficient than other designs because the amplifier has to boost the electrical signal to overcome the force of air pressure. The force serves as valuable function, however, it acts like a spring to keep the driver in the right position. This makes for tighter, more precise sound production. And then we have the bass reflex speaker enclosure, which is on the top right. And that one does a backward motion of the diaphragm to push the sound waves out of the port, boosting overall sound level. And this is the port right here. The main advantage of the bass reflex enclosure is efficiency. The power moving the driver is used to emit two sound waves rather than one. This advantage, although, is that there is no air pressure difference to spring the driver back into place, so sound production is not as precise. And then we have the passive radiator enclosure, which are very similar to the bass reflex units. But in passive radiator enclosures, the backward wave moves an additional passive driver instead of escaping out of the port. The passive driver is just like the main active driver, except it doesn't have an electromagnetic voice coil and is not connected to an amplifier. It is moved only by the sound waves coming from the active drivers. This type of enclosure is more efficient than sealed designs and more precise than the bass reflex models. And then we have the circuit diagram right here, which shows the enclosure with all three different drivers. And this right here would be the crossover. And for original speaker, it would just be like the mid-range driver. So it's just simple. It's just like whatever you connect to it would give it power to power up the speaker. And then we have a video to show. So yeah, pretty much what happens is you have your speaker and it has the auxiliary cord, and you just plug it into whatever device, in this case a phone, and the phone would use this amp to power up your speaker and play sound. So yeah, and then what powers up the speaker is the wattage, and the wattage is the amount of electrical power required by an appliance or device. The wattage is really important when it comes to speakers because the higher the wattage the speaker absorbs, the louder the sound would be. And that is also why amps and speakers that take more wattage are more expensive. So, how do you damage a speaker? So, the easiest way to damage a speaker is turning up the music too loud, and that could blow out your speaker and also hurt your ears, which is the only way a speaker can actually hurt you. So, once you turn it up too loud and you blow up your speaker, which would happen is you would get tears in the diaphragm, and then also another way to damage your speaker is by having an amp that has too much watts, and this would happen. The amp would just keep on going up and up, outpowering the speaker, which would also make it blow. And I have a video for that. So yeah, pretty much what happened there is just the amp was way too big for the speaker and just overpowered it, and the speaker couldn't take it, so it just ended up blowing up. And then other places speakers are found. Speakers are very common. We have them everywhere. We have them on our phones, on our computers, our cars. As you can see, some bigger than others. If you can get creative with them, you can make like little dolls out of them. And then, as you can see, this guy has speakers on his tricycle. So, yeah, thank you very much. Any questions?